Hello and welcome to Drop the Mic Podcast, where we discuss technology, theology, and all things in between. I want to personally thank you for joining us today. Now sit back, relax, share this, engage with the podcast that's already in progress. God bless you.
To another episode of Touch Taste Thursday. Yay! It is episode 7 of season 4, and my guest tonight is Mr. DK Hammonds, and we are going to talk about a whole lot of stuff. He is such a dope guy. Like, I really am excited for you guys to hear from DK and learn from him and just see how you can make your ministry better. So, in the meantime, a couple of notes. Make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure you have gotten that done because time is starting to wind up. So, make sure you have checked the registry that you are still on it so that you can go out and vote because it is important. There's several things. And if you've been keeping up with the news, you know that there are several things going on, not just nationwide, but in your local areas that you need to be involved in and they need your voice. So make sure you do that. Make sure you get that taken care of. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get Brother DK in and we're going to get started right now. I hope you guys have had a great week. It is finally Thursday. This week has been like at least 4 weeks long.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Let's go.
Let's get it. I'm excited.
I am too. Rebekah got this dope platform. She want me to come on and talk about this church stuff, you know what I'm saying, and try to put y'all up on some game.
You're going to try to help the saints.
It'll bless somebody along the way.
We're going to try to help the saints tonight, but saints don't listen. So
they ain't got no choice in this season. You're going to hear it well, or you're going to accept the fact that you don't want to do it well, and that'll be all your fault. It won't be our fault. We good.
And there's that. There is that. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Touch Taste Thursday, DK. I am so excited to have you a part of the Gene Ellen experience. I've known you almost about a year now, maybe a little bit over a year. And, you pop in with your wisdom and you drop your nuggets and your breadcrumbs, and then you just leave the rest for everybody else to pick it up and do whatever they're going to do with it. So
right. Those are freebies.
And that's for free. Right. That's the ones you do for free. Everything else you got to pay for.
You got to, there's an invoice waiting on you.
Listen, I'm about to start sending out invoices in 2023. You better believe that.
Absolutely. Shout out to my daughter and my best friend watching.
Hey, y'all. Yes. So tell us about DK. Who is DK Hammonds?
Well, I am a husband of one, Aisha, father for Zion, Zaria, Ebby, and Ari, my children. And let's see, I love the LA Lakers. That's my squad. I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, just so y'all know.
Mm-hmm.
Seated in Fort Worth, Texas, Beta Tau Lambda is my home chapter. And man, I sit in a unique place where I get to talk about two of my favorite things, and that's technology and theology. And so that's why people dub me as a digital theologian, because I'm bringing both of these barrels to your conversation to kind of enrich your life and increase your bandwidth as it relates to your knowledge about tech and theology. But that's me.
That's dope. Like, I have so many questions because I'm trying to understand how in 2022 of our Lord, the saints still do not know how to operate Zoom. They still don't know how to operate Teams. Still can't get Skype together. Like, what is going on to where we just can't get it right after all these years?
Yeah, I think there is a fear of tech. There is a what they call the digital divide in tech. And so you have that fear, add the digital divide, and then our counterparts have tools and resources that we do not, which, aid with that. And so those things, put that together, you have this, I don't want to. I think the most important thing is just the lack of want to. Like, I don't want to proceed. An old saying says, we've done it this way for this long. I'm going to continue to do it this way. Well, sometimes you have to do things to make it better so that other people can come alongside of you and aid you and progress and move forward. So I think if you do that and you take the approach that we want to be better, we want to move forward, we want to, really change the landscape of our church or ministry or even our businesses, you can't do that without tech. You just can't do it. So
but why is it still giving the Saints heartburn? Like, we've had so many classes, so many seminars, so many step-by-step processes during the height of the pandemic. Churches, jobs, everyone went online. And so why in 2022 it's still, please mute your phone when you come into the chat. Please turn your camera off when you come into the chat.
See, that's a lack of awareness. You have the technology in front of you. And so like when I came on, the first thing I'm aware of, can you hear me? If you can't hear me, then I need to adjust what I'm doing because your stuff should work fine, right? Yes. That's just a matter of being around tech to understand that everybody doesn't move to the same bandwidth that I do. So saints have to be more open to these new tools and resources because it makes your life, your job, your family connectivity better. We still, y'all, are in a pandemic.
Yes.
Whether you want to like it or not, we still in the pandemic. And there are going to be a lot of meetings, a lot of church services still on Zoom. Yeah. So do yourself a huge favor. Before you even come on Zoom, there's a small button that says, do you want to show your video and mute your mic?
Correct.
It's very simple. Just mute your mic and don't show your video and you're going to be fine. Now, there are going to be other people that still want to unmute their mic and show their video because they want to do something strange for a piece of change.
That's strange. Not even the church sector, but even like public and private industry, it never seems to connect. And it drives me nuts, to get on these Zooms with people and then they come in, they talking loud or there's noise in the background. And so how, as a digital theologian, how have you been able to kind of pivot between both spaces, whether that's the sanctuary as well as secular?
Yeah, so those of y'all who don't know my background, I spent 12 years in the church startup space, right? And not a church startup, but in the startup space. So startup applications, whether it be for air conditioning or whether it be for point of sale systems, that's where I spent the bulk of my business. And so we move very differently than how we would move in the church space. There's a certain cadence. There is a fast pace to getting things done. There's not a, let's sit back and let's wait. No, let's get it done because we have 5 things behind it that we equally need to get done. So now transition into the church space within a year, I've been able to kind of change from like that grind culture that that the secular world has and move into a more healthy culture, a more healthy pace, but still not losing the tenacity that it takes to get things done. Sometimes, at least for me, in the church space, we move entirely too slow. We don't have that same relationship when it comes to business because in business, again, there's a cadence to getting it done. But when we get in church, we got to pray about it. We got to do this. We got to do that. No, set your budget. Yeah. And let people do their jobs and they'll take care of everything that needs to be taken care of in a timely manner.
What about the churches that have still not come up to, I don't want to say like the branding or like the design that we've seen where you have, a lot of the ministers or ministry leaders, they have nice backdrops, they have nice lighting, they have, a little bit more, I guess, more up to date, sound system and microphone equipment and stuff like that. But they're still just kind of, in the fellowship hall. The video look raggedy. You got the panels in the back, the wooden panels. Like, how do we bring them forward? How do we get them to come closer into the future where we're going?
Well, the way to bring folks forward is folks got to be willing to invest. Mm. Y'all invest in your football team, basketball team.
Yep.
Local economy. Some of y'all like edibles, so y'all invest in folks who make edibles. Some of y'all like to drink from the local distillery, and y'all invest into that.
Yes.
But it's only when we get to church that investments get tight.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that there is a myriad terms of budgeting, but you can do a lot for a little if you will invest in the right people and the right resources. So let's give an example, right? So tonight, I'm running a microphone and a podcasting setup that I can have my inner ears working at the same time. This don't cost more than $1,000 for this entire setup, right? You can run this in your church tomorrow and have the sound quality that I have in my home, right? Now, what's the difference between me and you? Investment. I was willing to put my money up to invest into myself. Why can't you do the same thing to invest into the people of God? Here's the thing. The Bible talks about how can they hear very clearly. So if we can't hear you, we can't invest into you. Right. So set us up in a way that we can hear clearly what God is saying to the church through systems and processes within the church.
Do you think some have taken it too far with the theatrics of having the lighting and the, the music in the background? Like some, I know there are some churches that had to kind of keep the audience or keep the congregants engaged, because initially when this first started, we were kind of falling off. We were just showing up on Facebook Live or whatever, and it was not keeping our attention. So do you see where some have taken it too far, too much going on in the background, too much noise, and just too much?
Yeah, I don't think there's a such thing as too far. It might be too much. It may not be your taste. It may not be in your investment sector. But too far is subjective.
Okay.
So for many people, you may look at various churches like Transformation, right? Everybody is not Transformation Church. Now, here's the one thing that Transformation Church is doing. They know who their audience base is. And so since they know who their audience base is, what are they doing? Investing in a method that their audience base will enjoy. What we don't know is who is the audience. Let me tell y'all something. Here's a quick digital tip. And it's free. It won't cost you nothing.
Come on, free.
Go right to your YouTube analytics. It's an analytics tab on the left-hand side. If you hit send, go to the left-hand side. It's like right in between monetization and something else, I believe. Go right there and hit the analytics. It will tell you who's actually watching your lives or your YouTube stream. That gives you a trajectory by which you can measure, and you can say, if 24 to 34-year-olds are watching our stuff, then what are we doing to gauge and keep their attention? Okay, This is what we're doing. Whereas 60-year-olds are watching our stuff, what are we doing to gauge their attention? So whatever your audience base is, whatever your brand is, that is what you're going to invest in, right? And so that's where you need to be. So if your brand ain't up to the standard where you can invest, there are other tools that you can use. Listen, y'all, here's another free tool you can use.
Come on, free.
To create some branding. Go boldly to Canva. Boldly.
Yes.
Canva will bless your whole entire life and get you started on branding and concepts that will help you. For instance, you're going to be on Instagram, right? You want to have some little memes. Well, if you go to Canva, Canva can create that for very cheap or very low budget. It's not going to cost you. Now, if you want to go to the next level from Canva, then you have what's called social. I think it's Sunday Social. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, Sunday Social. That's going to cost you, right? And you're going to actually have to go buy Adobe, right? And this will allow you to create personalized graphics for your branded audience, right? Because that's who you're trying to impact the most. So you need to know your audience. You need to make sure you got great resources and tools. And most importantly, you need to make sure that you're investing in personnel within your church. Here's a story in the Bible, right? The man needed healing, and he stood outside the church. So what did they do? They lifted him up to the ceiling, past the ceiling to the roof, tore the roof up, and lowered him down. Where did they lower him down to? In the very presence of Jesus Christ. So the very thing that that man needed was in the house. Could it be, parenthetically, the very thing that you're looking for in terms of design, in terms of logo and creative arts, in terms of audio and sound technology, is in the house. You just hadn't lowered yourself low enough to find them. And so we need to do more of that too.
Yes. With that, on that point, let me say, I noticed that us as a culture, as a people, we don't particularly like to ask our immediate circle, or we don't like to ask our children or our nieces or nephews. We always say, oh, no, you can't do that. And we reach for these other ethnic groups to come in and do things for us. Why is that?
Okay. So other ethnic groups tend to invest without expecting anything in return. And they're willing to sow, and they're willing to offer people power just to stand you up. Where in Black America, we don't, watch this, we don't invest, nor do we share information with each other.
Yes.
We're very selfish in that context. And if we would share that, we could help somebody else along the way. So I think part of it is, yes, they have a different approach by which they approach ministry. And they have certain resources that other African Americans do not have, right? Let's not, there is a divide. Let's be very clear about that. However, we have an opportunity, if we would really put our resources together, we could buy bulk software. We could use Canva if we worked as a team. People can then take some of the Canva information that we have, reuse what we have for their own benefit, and use that at their church. And then what we do is now we're creating something, and then we're like, yo, I think we should create our own software company, and we don't have to use them. We can use our own, because we don't have our own. We're always dependent on others to do something done for us.
Speaking of creating our own, you have a podcast called Drop the Mic.
Yeah.
And you've had, quite a few live episodes where you've shared so much information, so much knowledge. And one thing that I really enjoy about you, online and off, is that you always keep it real, no matter what it is. And you can always tie it back to a scripture.
That's right.
So as a brand scholar and a digital theologian, how are you able to just put all of this together and not burn yourself out?
Uniquely, that's how God made me. Before I got into tech, I was already preaching prior to. And I could not find community in tech spaces because there weren't many people like me. And when I say like me, brown, Black, that's actually Christians. Most of the people that are within the Christian diaspora, or in the tech diaspora, should I say, are a different ethnicity, and they're agnostic. Yes. So enter someone who is like me, who is a believer, a minister of the gospel, loves God, but also loves the tech space and is growing in that knowledge. So for a season of my life, Rebekah, I did not, necessarily use the pulpit to actually do my ministry. My ministry was done what I'm doing now, having conversations with people and going other places and allowing that to speak. And let's be clear, nobody really paid much attention to me before pandemic. I'm just gonna walk the trail.
Come on.
Only a few people knew that this is what I did, because most people don't understand tech.
Right.
But when the pandemic hit, guess who was still riding hard? It was me. I was on here with my stuff, doing all kind of stuff. And if you go back and look at some of the stuff like I did on Clubhouse, very unique. And now most of the people are even morphing that and using that to their advantage. Nobody was using music in Clubhouse before me. I'm just being honest. They wasn't doing it, especially in the Christian diaspora. Nobody wasn't doing that. Nobody wasn't doing that on Twitter Spaces. It was me and maybe a few other people. And the name Digital Theologian, because you keep bringing it up, the person who actually created that for me is in the room.
Come on.
And so me and Jen have Black Light Digital, that we actually do a podcast together as well. Shout out to Jen. And she gave me this tagline because we work together, and she was just like, man, you just got these two worlds working very uniquely together, making them do what they do. And Digital Theologian is what she came up with. And so that's kind of how it stuck with me. And so now we bring into a new era outside of pandemic. Pandemic brought me a new job in the tech space. That's interesting. Pandemic brought me in various circles because I was working this space. It was other people that had no idea how to do what they're doing. And let me be clear, some of y'all have gone back to before I consulted y'all. And y'all need to get back on that console so we can get y'all back together, because y'all are looking similar to what you were looking before. Very, it looks like nobody's working with it because you're not investing into it.
Right. Yep. How do you feel about podcasting? And I mean, like I said, you always keep it 100. So I am waiting to hear your answer on this question. Yeah. But with podcasting, it just seems like people feel like, oh, I'm funny. I'm Facebook funny. You know, I post a couple memes. I get a couple hundred likes and laughs or whatever. Let me do a podcast. So everybody has a podcast now. How can you have longevity in the podcasting space and bring substance and make sure that you're giving good quality content?
Yeah, so for me, I've been doing podcasting since a little bit between 2007 and 2017 is when I kind of got in. And when I got started in podcasting, they did not have the very ease that it takes to get on a podcaster. I was literally uploading my podcast to Podomatic and had to run what's called an RSS feed. This feed distributes through Google and all the other platforms, and they distribute your sound that way through packets, right? So I had to do my stuff that way. So literally what took me 24 hours to create takes me now 15 to 20 minutes to create in the span of 5 to 7 years. I got into it because what I saw in the game when it came to ministers and ministries and preachers is that the older guard, like the G.E. Pattersons, the AME bishops and preachers and leaders, and some of the Baptist people that have left the earth, had nowhere to stick their content. These people had Sundays upon Sundays of messages and Bible studies sitting on their actual platforms at their churches, just collecting dust. Well, the flip to that is if you take that information and put it on a podcast, it's forever accessible and your voice never dies, right? And so that always kind of stuck in my mind. I never wanted my voice to die. So which way do I want to go? I either want to do some YouTube work, and that's cool, or I want to do podcasts. Well, podcasting kind of stuck with me. So I stuck my sermons on the podcast and started using that. And then I started building it and creating and tinkering, and then took some years off because I got discouraged, really, because it's like, hey, man, I'm doing all this. I don't really think people appreciate what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, how it's unique to anybody else, this, that, and the other, and so I kind of dropped it off. And then a little bit before the pandemic, God just kind of gave me that push. Like, now it's time to push it back out. And I pushed back out there. And these are the results that I'm experiencing, right? And so it takes that, and that longevity, you're going to get tired. It's not going to be your sauce. And I don't think, to that same point, everybody needs a podcast. Some of y'all just need a good Twitter page, right? You need a good video. You don't need podcasting and being responsible for production and there. You just don't.
Listen, I hear you clearly. I hear you clear, because I can't,
Folks,
you know.
And let me say this too. Here's what's funny, man. There's so much money in podcasting right now. It is unreal.
Yes.
But there's not enough Christian believing podcasters that's doing it at a high rate at all. So by and large, our people group that's Black hadn't really adopted doing podcasting at a high level, right? Because they don't see any return into it. I see legacy building. Yes. I see conversations that never end. I see things that I can say that I never have to repeat because I put them in this long form and somebody can pick this up and reuse it over and over again. So that is why. That is the longevity piece.
I love it. You talk about getting discouraged. I've been in, I guess, not really podcasting, but the live space and the creation space. It's been a little over 2.5 years now. And it's like you said, you know, it's like, who's listening? Are people really paying attention? Or are they tuning in because they are giving me grace because they know me? Like, you know, it's just one of those where it's just like, how do I know the impact in the long haul of being able to do this, giving good content, having good, you know, conversations with people and making it last forever? And so outside of Instagram, what other platforms do you think work the best for creators to make sure that they keep their identity, they keep their intellectual property, and that they have that legacy building?
Yeah, I think Instagram is a good resource, and I think TikTok is a good resource. I also think Clubhouse is still a good resource, and I think Twitter Spaces, the social audio, helps you build your chops.
Okay.
Right. So these applications are good. Now let's insert YouTube Shorts, and I'm mentioning these specifically: YouTube Short, TikTok, Instagram, because these are the ones that you can actually get paid from if getting paid is your end goal. Yeah. Some people, I do this, and God had to arrest me on this. Are you doing this because you're trying to get paid? Are you doing this because you're trying to make your voice live forever? And so when I understood that, I stopped trying to do it for the chase. I was doing it because I was called to do it now. And so for those who aren't called, you just need something short term. TikTok is going to be your way to get your bread. Instagram is going to be your way to get your bread. Now, if you want brand deals, that's going to take a little bit more work. That means you're going to have to work on Clubhouse, work on YouTube all the way through, and then insert the Facebook and insert the Instagrams. Those actually will pay you at the time you have. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the one thing I didn't mention that's important. You can go jump on all these people platforms.
Right.
And when you jump your behind on there, you don't own your content unless you record it somewhere else.
Yes. There you go.
Own your content. So I know Rebekah been talking to me. She's probably recording this somewhere. And if she ain't recording this, you already know who's recording this conversation. It's me.
Absolutely.
I record all of these conversations. Why? Because if I can control my content and I become a distributor of my content, nobody can control the voice that I have. Come here, associate minister. You looking for somewhere to preach on Sundays? You can start you a good podcast, have you a Bible study right here, and do your thing. You don't have to go running up to the pulpit, begging pastor for preaching engagements. That ain't your task. Start you a good Bible study, and you will do the same thing you've been doing, right? Correct. Now, I think you asked me something else associated with that in terms of longevity, in terms of what applications to use. And I'm missing the question. I feel like I was right there on the tip of it.
The question was about not being burnt out, not being discouraged, and just making sure that you are connecting.
Yeah. So the other way of connection, again, analytics tell you what you're doing, tells you who you're impacting, tells you who's listening. I don't care if I got 3 people on. That's all I need. That's all I need. I don't need more than 3. If I've been on lives, I promise you, for 25 minutes talking to myself, it did not matter to me.
Right.
Why? Because I am doing this because I want to see people's lives change, not because I'm trying to see this residual effect on the back end, right? I'm not trying to see hell being raised like Sean Bigby. I'm simply trying to do what I got to do on the back end so that people's lives can be changed.
Yes.
It's very so discouragement happens in this thing because you get to looking at your numbers ain't where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Let me tell you, stop trying to chase the numbers. They tell you who's listening. They're not worth chasing. Stop trying to chase them. Enjoy the journey. We miss so much trying to get paid. We miss so much trying to be known.
Yes.
That we don't understand the journey. How would I know how to hook up a whole production suite in my home if I was so busy trying to get paid? Now, I don't need to go into a production office. I can do it on my own and know what they need to do in order to produce the quality and sound. That's what it's about, right? So some people are looking for the quick fix. They're looking for the right now. That's not going to work. That's going to discourage you. That's going to burn you out.
Yes.
There is a godly pace that you need to get into. You ain't got a podcast every day. I know people that do it 3-4 times a day. That's cool. I do it when I feel led to do it.
Okay.
So there was a season, like sometimes there's a month or 2 that may go by. I don't do nothing. I'm not led to do nothing right now. Or I'm looking for new content to create. Or I'm changing stuff around. I'm tinkering. I'm trying to see what's best for me now. What makes me feel good at that particular moment.
Correct.
And then I come on here and I'm able to present you a product that is doable. Like, for instance, you've never seen me at this angle in my office. Usually I'm at the angle where I'm facing the door, or you see my back end.
Yeah.
Well, for this podcast, I couldn't use a full lens camera because I normally use a Canon T6 or a mirrorless camera. You don't know what a mirrorless camera look like? It looks something like this. That's a mirrorless camera.
Right.
So I use those things to actually film. But with Instagram only lets you do horizontal filming.
Correct.
You can't do it vertical. You have to do it horizontal. So I shifted my whole office around, plugged my sound system up, still have my same quality of sound, and still have the same video quality. Now, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't know how, if I didn't spend time in here trying to tinker. And before we got on 5 minutes, I was like, yo, my lights are off. Let me fix my lights. So I had to go through, turn off the lights, turn on other lights so it can create an ambiance that fits my host, the host's ambiance. So I was thinking even in regards to that. That's how my brain works when it comes to the podcasting and the setup, the production. I'm into the quality of products. And so that takes me time to do. I'm going to give you an example. Today, not to brag, I've done 3 podcasts a day.
Yes, you have.
This is my third one. And so they're all go up at certain times, but I'll go in between, chop them up, and do some other things to support those 3 things. And that's how I will continue to produce my content. So that's what helps me. I'm on a godly pace. I'm not trying to keep up with people. I don't have, to me, any direct competition. I am my own competition in this space. Everybody that's, at least to me, and I don't say this, not to brag.
Not to
at least to me, not to brag. I like to make it very clear. I am the one being chased in these spaces. There are people looking for me in these spaces. Right. I am not looking for them. I am creating this thing. I am the originator of several things. And so, especially in our people, because our people ain't never seen nothing like this, right? And so just to be able to give that, to show that in a very real, authentic way, I think it's important. And guess what? To my good Q brother, it ain't flexing if you're not lying. I'm telling the straight
there
truth.
you
You
go.
can go follow me up.
Yeah.
You can go. This is what you can go do. You can go look at my old videos and be like, "Hey man, this was kind of trash."
Right.
On my phone, and you can look at the current videos and say, "Yeah, I don't know what got into that dude. He figured it out, and I figured it out for me." And so I'm willing to share that information with people on these types of platforms, and then invoicing the rest of them. Yes.
Like Ministry Up.
Ministry Up. I'm checking my mailbox right now. Right now.
I'm always curious about, content creation. Like, what is considered good content? What is considered bad content? Like, I think as creators, we're always in our minds about it. We're always like, oh, I don't like the way I looked in this particular picture, or I didn't like the way my hair was in this video, or the sound was off. Like, how do we know when the content, just put it out there and not look like it's trash?
Yeah. To me, there's no such thing as bad content. It's just not.
Okay.
It's content that you may not find favorable, that you may not have liked something, and that goes to something bigger, right? We are our harshest critics, and some people that look at our product aren't looking for finished product; they're looking for authentic ones, and we need to be more shaped toward that than trying to always be production. I did my last video with my best friend Julian Hobby. I have the video, but the video quality is garbage. And I'm the one that was on the video, controlling the video. That did not stop me from producing that content. I put it up in a different way where you couldn't see the video, and put the video somewhere else so when I want to release it, I can as is. Right? So to me, there's no such thing as bad content. That's only unused content. Yeah, unused, unfavorable. So when it comes to creation, or being a creative, right? And you're looking for content and so what inspires me is what I see on my social feed that kind of gives me, stuff to talk about, or what I'm reading kind of gives me stuff to talk about, or what books I bought, or a conversation I had at church, or something that you guys did on social that's just gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna get right in front of it, and before everybody else start talking about it, I'm already on it, right? I'm like 2 weeks ahead of you, and that's just because I'm an early adopter to things, and I'm a person that's a researcher, and that's what also produces more content. Content is everywhere. It is for us to go and get it and pull it and originate it and pull it where it needs to go so that people can enjoy it. And to John's point, there is somebody that likes the content.
Yes.
Just give them what they're asking for and be consistent with it. It's just like some of y'all who single. Y'all single out in these streets. And all you asking for is somebody to be consistent, somebody to show up the best way they know how, and present the best product on their side that they can present.
Yes.
This is no different. No different. And so this is no knock to single folks, but this is an analogy so that we can all grasp, because what we're really looking for is perfection in creativity. And there's no such thing, because creativity is so objective, right? And it's everywhere for everybody to grasp. So I think that's where my creative juices come from. Seminary journeys, conversations here, there, all of that type of deal. So yeah, that's what come from. There go Jamal Bates. Hey, y'all go check out the Jamal Bates Morning Show.
Yeah.
It's every day at 5 o'clock, I think. Check it out.
Yes, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Me and the rest of the crew on the Jamal Bates Morning Show.
There you go.
Shout outs. But let me ask you this, though. So you mentioned just, making sure that the content is consistent, putting it out there because someone likes it. When is too much? I know I asked that question about the setup, the lighting, or whatever. When is it ever too much? When do we get to that point where it's like, okay, now you need to streamline it down because you're doing too many things? I'll use me for an example.
Yep.
At one point, I was doing carpool karaoke. Another point, I was cooking live. You know, I do Touch Taste Thursday. I do a morning show. I do all of these different things. And I'm like, I'm trying to build my brand. But when is it too much?
That's a good question. I think it is too much when you lose sight on you. You can only probably do one or two things really, really well. And you should focus on those one or two things really, really well. And try to then, what we call in the tech space, streamline. And when you streamline, that's when all the other things come out. So if I am a content creator and curator, what is the best way for me to do that to reach my audience? Well, bulk of my audience, the strongest audience, is on Facebook. So I content create through text, right? And then I can take the same content creation via text that happened 5 years ago. Check my post, see how many people actually liked it. Run it on what's that? TikTok. Put an ocean behind it. That's content. Go run it on Instagram. Put a nice song to it. That's content. And so I took something that existed, that was old, and repurposed it for something good. Come here closer. There are often times that you feel like what you're doing is not good enough. And God is saying there's nothing wrong with you taking what was once old and reusing it again, because somebody may need to hear it. And so also the other barometer for that is my wife is going to tell me when I'm absolutely doing the most and I need to catch and cop a seat. And that's another barometer for me, right? Or I'm just outright tired. If I am usually tired, I'm not trying to produce a show for people because that's not me giving my best.
Yeah.
So to back up the conversation and punt it again, for like you, Rebekah, in your example, I'm not trying to get wider. I'm trying to get vertical. And vertical helps me scale the product. So if I'm thinking of, this podcast, I'm thinking of how can I take this and put this podcast somewhere else. I'm thinking of, okay, how can I then flip this and say, I'm going to cook this week. And then I'm thinking of, okay, cool. How can I do karaoke on here? And I'm just making everything streamlined. And it seems like it's 70 different ideas.
Right.
The purpose of it is to streamline one central thought and make it go all the way up. These are the things that I'm bringing. So an example of that is a good friend of mine out of Memphis. Her name's Chef Tam. Chef Tam. That's my wife's best friend, right? And I've been knowing Chef Tam for so long. I've been eating her food for so long. That's like family. But she figured out how to scale the business. And what she figured out is, okay, let me get on video. Let me increase my TikTok presence. Let me increase this. Let me do this. Let me go on this show. And all of that simply trickles down to the actual business that exists in 2 different states. So you have to understand in business and in church what scalability is.
Okay.
And do I have a product that I can scale that people will enjoy, or people will invest in? And if I do, then let me trim down the fat so I can give them that. If this is giving me the most residual in terms of response, let me do more of this. And then I can pick up cooking. And then I can pick up this karaoke. And then I can do these other fun things that help you scale the brand business. That's how you do it. I just gave you a whole consult.
You sure did.
Right,
and I appreciate it. Send me an invoice. Send my invoice to Ministry
I'm
Up.
going to send you that invoice. Send it. Okay. Ministry Up.
Send it to Ministry Up.
We're going to send it over there. God bless you.
So let's now, we done talked about tech and content and all that. So now let's deep dive a little bit more. Okay. Why are the Saints always mad? when you're posting about the services, you're posting about your pastor, you're posting your about your flyer for your conferences or whatever you have. Is it the point of posting to get people to come to whatever it is that you're having, to listen, to draw them in? Why are the saints so mad about that? They don't want their services recorded. They don't want their pictures posted without their express acknowledgement. Like, make that make sense.
Long term, you need a social media manager. The purpose of a social media manager is to control the thought, the voice, the brand of those who will experience you outside of church and other spaces. What you got is a bunch of novices who are trying to run their public business page like church, like their personal page. And your personal voice will be different than your brand business voice. And so we have to shoo away from using personal voices when we're talking about brand business. And we're talking about church business. And we have to help create a church voice. That is a voice that is inviting. That is a voice that is socially conscious. That is a voice that is trying to draw people in, right? And so if you are turning people away with derogatory language that is not inclusive of others, language that is abusive of people, language full of ableism and hatred, then expect for 5 people to show up to your church, maybe,
right?
Because you have invested into the wrong thing. But if you change that brand voice to be a voice that is inclusive, inviting, loving, accepting of those, then watch this. People don't mind coming to your Facebook Live. They don't mind coming to your church. And most importantly, they don't mind giving their dollars and investing their resources into you. It's amazing how these same people that you speak of are usually the ones complaining about low attendance and lack of connectivity when it comes to their church. Well, your voice is terrible. Your brand structure and how you speak to people is wrong. And yet you're expecting God to do a miracle. Well, the first miracle you need to perform is hiring a consult to be your brand business strategist to help you have a voice in your social media aspect. Gone are the days where your pastor is just the brand voice. You got social media now, that is also the brand voice. And I echo what they are saying in the chat. It's funny how people they have all of these ideas.
Yes.
And sermonically, you have not invested into that. I would dare to say I would rather see and hear a sound preacher with bad video and great sound than hear a terrible preacher with great video and great sound.
So who do you think has figured it out in the balancing both the word, getting that out, as well as the visual and the sound? Not necessarily, you don't have to name them like individually, but what ministries you feel have figured it out?
Oh, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of black ones. There's a lot of multi-ethnic ones. There's a lot of white ones. They have figured out. And usually their figuring came by way of their investment. You are what you sow into. I can track you down by what you invest into on a day-to-day basis. So if you don't invest into a structure like this, then you're not going to reap that benefit. So I know somebody's saying, well, I'm a small church and we can't invest. There is an application. I'm going to come closer. There's a free tip.
Come on, free.
There's an application. A couple of them. Hootsuite, Nucleus, Buffer. Some of these apps are very free and allow you to structure your brand voice on these platforms and distribute content in a very calculated way. We are not intentional about our content that we are distributing, Therefore, it has a different voice than what it should. So if I'm thinking of people that do it right and they appease to their audience, I think of people like Transformation, First Mansfield, who does it really well. I think of my church, we do it well. I think of like Alfred Street that do it well. I think of Wheeler Avenue that do it well. I can think of churches on the West Coast that do it extremely well. And most of the people that you see that have done it well, Voss Church, VOUS Church, they do it well. Nashville Full Gospel, Joseph Walker, they do it well. There are a plethora of people who do it well. John Hanna does it really well, right? I can think of medium-sized churches that do it well, right? I can think of like St. Luke Baptist Church in Little Rock, Arkansas, New Hope Baptist Church in North Little Rock, Arkansas. I can think of St. Mark. These people are not necessarily mega, but they do it extremely well. And so that doesn't, they invested into having a good product in person and outside of church. So if the Bible says, because the Bible is full of new technology references that we ignore. Think about this. The Tower of Babel was a form of technology. And it had to be destroyed, right? Think about all the things you go back and like, hey, that's a new tech piece. The ark, Noah's Ark, is a form of technology, right? That God used to transport people from one place to the next, right? And so using those new methods help you reach a new audience. The Bible talks about go into the highways and byways and compel men to come. Well, how do you do that? You do that through a version of using technology. If you come and put a one of those things the Jehovah's Witness put on the door, that's a form of technology. Right? Yeah. And so we're not being smart about this stuff called tech. We're just kind of like, well, God's going to do it. No, God is going to do it according to what you do. Stop being lazy. Hallelujah.
Stop being lazy. Yeah, sounds good. Let's talk about this before we wrap up for the night.
Yeah.
You have a lot of I know we talk about podcasters, but we have a lot of content creators, such as like the Larry Reeds and the King Jobs and the Tasha K's and everybody, just about. Like, why do you think that church mess or church drama or church stuff makes for good content? Why do bloggers enjoy the craziness of church?
I've been watching this the messy ministry, I like to call it.
Okay.
Where we are kind of profiting off the backs of people making mistakes. And mind you, I like some mess. I ain't gonna even hold. Some of the stuff is absolutely hilarious.
Because we petty, shady, and violent.
Yeah. Some of this stuff I'd be like, hey man, this is wild to me. Right? But what you have seen is the capitalistic nature of Christians. And they have figured out a way to capitalize on church mess. If you do it, we speak on it. Right? There used to be a culture that we didn't talk about church business outside of church.
Yes.
Well, that culture no longer exists. If you do it inside a church, 9 times out of 10, somebody got their phone out, recording you and what you said and redistributing without your permission.
Yep.
You actually could be sued for that, right?
Yep.
So the game has changed. We Larry Reed got a whole Patreon. This is what some of the saints don't know. Larry Reed got a whole Patreon that he has subscription-based services.
Yes.
To deeper levels of mess.
Yes.
Videos.
Yes.
And pictures. And guess what? Larry Reed driving around in a Bentley. So some of you Negroes and she-grows, and that is not exclusive of color, it's everybody, are paying Larry Reed for
Very
the
well.
content, messy or not, because guess what? Something inside of us enjoys somebody else's drama. It's like rewatching Young and the Restless every single day. Right? And for me, I engage. I won't lie to you. I engage in it because some of y'all be out here wild. Like just straight up.
Wow.
Y'all do stuff that I would never do in the confines of church. But will I use my platform to critique? Sure. That's my job. I'm a critiquer of the culture, especially Christian culture, especially leaders and preachers. I'm going to critique it. Will I use my platform to belittle or disrespect you? I will not do that. Why will I not do that? Because biblically, I can't do that. Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, I think 15, 19 says, if my brother has offended me, because some of this stuff be offensive.
Very much so.
Then my first responsibility is not to go on my socials. It is to go to them in private. Why should I go to them in private? I'm explaining this slow for the slow people. Because my effort is to try to maintain and keep the relationship. I can't do that by tearing them down on my social media platforms, especially if I am viewed as a person of respect and dignity for other folk. Right? Now, if you go and do something, here's how I measure that. Because I know that may be the next question. How do you measure what you're going to say and what you're going to do? I measure it based on the premise of justice. If something is unjust, I have a responsibility to speak at it. Okay, that's biblically, and that's what I'm supposed to do. If something is just, I have a responsibility to uplift and build that up, right? That doesn't matter what color or person or gender, whatever it is. That's just what controls how I think through things. If it is unjust, I'm going to beat the drum and say, that's not right. If it is just, I'm going to say, thanks be unto God, that is right.
Right.
And that's what kind of keeps me out of the mess. Listen, let me tell you, before Larry Reed, I could have been Larry Reed.
Oh, okay.
Ask around. Trust and believe that. I am not playing with you. Half of y'all did not know my Facebook page prior to, and it used to be the town center for mess.
Yeah.
I could bring them together. I can ask one question and they would talk about it for 4 days if I chose to. But what I figured out is, do I want to be known for that?
Right.
Or what do I want to be known for something bigger and better? And those who've been rocking with me a while, they know that. They know I will flip my social media page upside down and we'll be here for 3 days talking about this one post. They know that. I've done it. They know that. They know that. And I will run a series of things right behind it so that one post can still get drops.
Yes,
they know
indeed.
That. Okay, so those who know that also know that I don't do that anymore. And also, I'm more responsible with my voice and my platform because there are children watching. You see, my daughter came on here.
Yes.
My kids come on here. My mama may come on here. A person that I'm mentoring may come on here. And everything ain't meant for the public eye.
Right,
That things we need to go deal with behind the scenes. So to the Larry Reed, salute to you for making your money. That ain't how I want to make my bread. To Tasha K, who owed Cardi B $3 million, you to move to Africa. Salute to you. That's not how I make my bread. To the young ladies that's doing podcasts and this uplifting the church, whatever culture. Salute to you. That's not what I do. I want to honor. I want to respect that. There are different lanes, for people to kind of get into when it comes to this thing called podcasting and social media?
Let's end right there on that note, because I thought that was perfect. So thank you so much, DK, for coming in and sharing your knowledge, dropping the nuggets like you do for free. I appreciate that. I hope you guys are listening, because this brother really did give a lot of free information. So make sure you follow him on Instagram and Facebook, and you tune into his podcast, Drop the Mic.
For sure.
I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thanks to all the chat bots that were in the chat. Salute to all the hellions and heathens. Ooh. And also salute to that one person that I do not call their name out in the mornings. God bless you.
So we got to have a church meeting after this meeting. So
you guys going to be a meeting.
Y'all make sure you are following, you're liking, and you're sharing this information. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys for being a part of the Gene Dolan Experience. This has been Touch Taste Thursday, episode 7. As I always say, what's for me is for me, and what ain't is for another saint. So with that being said, I will see you guys the next Touch Taste Thursday and the Jamal Bates Morning Show in the morning. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. My hope is that the podcast added value to your life. Please, please, please subscribe from your favorite application, leave us a review, and even follow us on YouTube for your up-to-date information. Thank you. Peace.